Hi, my name's Sue, and this is Sue Marie P. And I've just made some muffins that I want to share the recipe with you. These are a semi-healthy breakfast muffin made with applesauce, whole grain spelt flour. There's no eggs, no dairy. They're delicious, fluffy, light, soft, really tasty, not too much sugar. What else can I say? They're so delicious. So if you'd like to see how to make these delicious applesauce breakfast muffins made with whole grain spelt flour, come with me and let's see. So the first step for our applesauce breakfast muffins today, you need to preheat your oven to 180 degrees C with a fan, and I'll pop some Fahrenheit measurements above. I like having my oven at 180 because it helps the muffins have a little bit of a rise and a dome. And then prepare your muffin tray. This usually makes under 12, so roughly about 8 to 9, depending on how tall you like them. And then we're going to do what's called the wet and dry muffin method, where I mix all my dry ingredients together and then all my wet ingredients. So in this large bowl here, I've got my whole grain spelt flour already measured out. I've got 200 grams, which is 1 cup plus 1/4 cup. And depending on what flour you use, you might want to weigh it or just tweak the moisture level, because whole grain flour weighs a little bit more than white flour. So in there I'm going to put my raising agents. I've got 1 teaspoon of bicarb soda or baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder and a pinch of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and I'll just whisk those together first. And then I'm going to add in 1/4 cup of brown sugar. You can use white sugar, coconut sugar. You can experiment and add a liquid sweetener. And there's lots of extras you can add in. So you can either add in some ground flax, coconut, you can put blueberries on the top. But today I've got a handful or 1/4 cup of toasted walnuts. I've just pre-toasted those earlier in the week, just on the stove top in a fry pan, and then chopped them up. And I've got 1/4 cup of raisins. If you don't have raisins, you can put cranberries, sultanas, or leave them out. But the pop of extra sweetness and moisture is good. So that's all the dry ingredients done. I'm just going to pop that bowl to one side and swap it for my wet bowl. You can do it in one bowl, but I find it's easier to whisk all the dry ingredients in one bowl and then mix all the other wet ingredients in another bowl. So this using what's called applesauce. Here in Sweden, it's everywhere and it's readily available. It has got a few additives in there. There's a little bit of sugar and other citric acid. So if you wanted to make your own out of fresh apples, please go ahead. But I'm just using the store-bought one. And it's called apple mousse here, and it's 1 cup or 250 grams. And into that, I'm going to add vanilla. So I've got 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And you can adjust this to taste. If you're somewhere where it has vanilla powder or vanilla sugar, you can use that. Just add it to your dry ingredients. The recipe has apple cider vinegar because we're not doing any eggs in this recipe. And it's just 2 teaspoons of the vinegar. If you don't have vinegar in the house, like apple cider vinegar, you can use white vinegar or swap it out for lemon juice. And I've made this a few ways. You can do 4 tablespoons of oil, like sunflower oil or rapeseed oil, or you can add a mashed banana, small mashed banana. But I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of extra applesauce. So it's going to be oil-free today. This recipe was inspired by a blogger that I found on the internet, and I'll add the link to my website. In there we're going to add some milk, 6 tablespoons of milk. And I'm using a non-dairy milk. I'm using oat milk. You can use soy milk, regular milk, whatever you like. And depending on what flour you've used, you may need to adjust your milk quantity. You might need to go a little bit less or a little bit more. I'm going to mix those together just with my spatula. Leave the milk there in case I need it. I'm just going to move some of these ingredients off my bench. So the next step, we need to combine the wet into the dry. So I just pour all of that in. If you're new here today, thanks for clicking on. Consider subscribing if you're not already subscribed, and welcome back if you're one of my regulars. I like experimenting with new recipes. I get inspired by other people's recipes as well and tweak them to add spelt flour or my own little twist. And I do a lot of baking with spelt flour and buckwheat flour and some gluten-free ideas. Now that texture looks quite good. It's quite a thick batter because we've used whole grain flour. So I don't think I'm going to add any extra milk. I've got my tray here. Got my ice cream scoop, or you can use a tablespoon or a dessert spoon. So I like to do about 1.5 scoops of the ice cream scoop to get a big muffin. So it's about 3/4 full. These paper cases are quite tall, so just depending on what you've used. If you don't have paper cases, you can also grease the tray with a bit of butter. Everything's measured out, ready to bake. My oven's preheated and nice and warm at 180 degrees fan. I'm going to bake them for about 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on them. If I think they're ready at 15, I'll bring them out. So the 15-minute timer went off, and I've just checked them with this little toothpick, and the toothpick comes out clean, so they're ready. They're kind of like springy, and I'm going to just wait at least 10 minutes till they cool down. Muffins are really much better when they've cooled down totally. They taste better, the flavours all come out. So let's just rest them for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what the texture looks like on the inside. So it's been about 10 minutes. I'm going to like munch into one of these muffins. So they're really springy and fluffy. They taste so delicious. I think I prefer them with the brown sugar over white sugar. A perfect weekend breakfast treat, especially if you're following a plant-based diet or a vegan diet. Got no eggs in them. The crunch of the walnut and the little bite of the raisin creates a nice surprise. Let me know if you give this recipe a go. Pop a comment below. Hit the thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here today. Pop a special thanks. Buy me a coffee or help towards my ingredients if you love this recipe and it's meant something to you. And thank you once again for your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye.